I jammed the hotel keycard behind my credit cards as my wife said, "Hand me your wallet, mine's in the car." If she flipped it open, she'd find the second keycard I'd forgotten to throw away, and the whole story I'd been rehearsing for months would die on our kitchen floor. House, job, custody, gone in one stupid rectangle of plastic. I gave her my phone instead, already unlocked, like a magician forcing the wrong prop into her hands. She took it, eyes on the screen, and I watched her thumb hover where my notifications would pop. Mara's name lit up anyway. Lunch tomorrow? It read, clean and innocent. The kind of message that only looks harmless if you don't know what tomorrow means. My wife didn't ask who Mara was. She just looked at me like she was memorizing my face. Then she said, too calmly, "You've been staying late again." "I'm slammed," I said, and hated how practiced it sounded. She set my phone down and finally took the wallet. Her fingers slid the cards aside. Her gaze paused. She didn't pull anything out. She didn't smile. "Where'd you get this?" she asked. My mouth went dry. Get what? She held up a tiny gold stud earring between two fingers, like it weighed nothing and still dragged the room under. I stared at it because I'd never seen it in my life, and that made it worse. It meant something had already happened in my house that I couldn't explain. "It was in the laundry," she said. "In your pants." I forced a shrug so I wouldn't flinch. Maybe it stuck to my jacket at work. People bump into each other. My wife nodded like she believed me, but her eyes didn't soften. "Okay," she said. "Then you won't mind if I stop by your office today." My throat tightened. "Why would you?" "Because I miss you," she said, and the lie in that sentence was sharp enough to cut. She put the earring on the counter beside the fruit bowl and walked out of the kitchen with my wallet still in her hand. At work, Mara didn't text. She didn't need to. She appeared at my desk with a sticky note already pressed to my keyboard. Room number, time, no explanation. Like I was a delivery sheet scheduled. I slid the note into my pocket and kept typing as if my life wasn't collapsing in slow motion. Mara leaned closer, voice low. "Your wife called the office line yesterday." My fingers stopped on the keys. "What?" "She asked for you by your full name," Mara said, watching me. Not "Hi, is he free?" Not "Can I leave a message?" Like she already knew the shape of the problem. I kept my face flat. "Why are you telling me this?" Mara smiled, and it wasn't flirtation. "Because I like when you're cornered." My phone buzzed again. A text from my wife. "I'm coming by at 2 o'clock. Don't disappear." 2 minutes later, another message, not from my wife. "Mara, lobby cameras broken. Use the side entrance." My skin went cold, not from fear this time, from the detail. I hadn't told her I was worried about cameras. I hadn't even thought about the lobby camera. She'd thought about it for me. At 1:40, I told my boss I had a client meeting. At 1:42, Mara was already in the stairwell, not the elevator, moving like she'd walked this path 100 times. She didn't look back to see if I followed. She assumed it. Outside, my wife's car rolled past the building slow, like she was reading the windows. I ducked behind a pillar and watched her glance up at the floor where my desk sat. She didn't see me. Relief hit, quick and dirty. Mara's hand closed around my wrist. "Don't," she whispered, and pulled me toward the street before my wife could circle back. We reached the hotel side entrance, and the door clicked shut behind us like a lock. The hall smelled like nothing. No romance, no escape, just silence and carpet. Halfway down the corridor, my phone lit again. My wife, "Answer me." Mara didn't ask what it said. She already knew I'd look. In the room, she set her bag down and didn't touch me. That was the first real change. She watched me, measured, like she was waiting for the exact second I broke. "You lied to her," she said. "Just now. About the meeting." I stared at her. "How would you?" "You always tilt your head when you lie," she said, like she'd known me for years. "Like you're listening for whether people believe you." She lifted the pendant at her throat, an oval locket on a thin silver chain, and flipped it open with one nail. Inside was a tiny engraving, a single letter, worn smooth around the edges. An E. My chest tightened, because I hadn't seen that letter in decades without thinking of a girl on a summer night, laughing in the dark, swearing she'd never forget me. I'd buried that memory so deep I'd convinced myself it wasn't real. Mara watched my eyes land on the letter and smiled like she just confirmed something. Recognize it? I didn't answer. Couldn't. She stepped to the bedside table and picked up my wallet, already opened, already searched. She pulled out the hotel keycard I'd hidden and tapped it against her palm. I'm not here because you're irresistible, she said. I'm here because you're predictable. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't my wife. Mara, text her you're working late. Use your home address in the message. I looked up, my stomach turning in a slow, awful way. Why my address? Mara's eyes didn't blink. Because if you don't, she said. I sent her the video from your car last week. I hadn't noticed my car. I hadn't noticed anything. She held my wallet out like a leash and waited, and my phone screen glowed in the dim room, ready to turn my home into the next message I'd betray her with. My thumbs hovered over my wife's contact while Mara watched the screen like a judge watching a confession get typed. Write it, she said. Your home address, like you're proving you're where you belong. I typed, working late. Don't wait up. I'll be home after 14 Kestrel Lane. The address looked wrong in a text, too intimate, like I'd handed a stranger a key. Send, Mara said. I didn't. I stared at the little arrow until my phone buzzed with an incoming call, my wife again. Like she could feel me standing in a hotel room with another woman and a loaded gun pointed at my marriage. Mara flipped my phone face down with 2 fingers. No calls. Text only. You said you had a video, I said. From my car. Last week. How? Mara leaned back against the dresser, calm, like we were negotiating a raise. Because you park in the same corner every day. Because you never check behind the rearview mirror. Because you think the dark is privacy. I pictured my car window, fogged glass, my own hands on Mara's waist. I'd assumed the world stopped at the edge of that parking lot. She was telling me it didn't. What do you want? I asked. Mara smiled like she'd been waiting for the question. I want you to do exactly what you do best. Like, convincingly. My wife's name flashed again. Missed call, then another text. Where are you right now? Mara didn't even glance at the phone. She's getting close. That earring was a test. She wants you to panic. That earring wasn't yours, I said, and the words came out too sharp. So whose was it? Mara's eyes flicked to the kitchen counter in my mind like she'd been there. Not mine, she agreed. But it landed in your laundry, didn't it? Funny how evidence finds the right pocket. The implication sank in. The earring wasn't an accident. It was a placed object, a spark tossed into dry grass. You were in my house, I said. Mara's expression didn't change. You invite people into your life without thinking. That's kind of your brand. My phone buzzed again. A photo this time sent from my wife. The earring on a paper towel beside our sink, like she'd bagged it for the police. Then one line. Tell me the truth before I hear it from someone else. Mara's hand slid into her bag and came out with a small black device. She set it on the bedside table like a piece of candy. A second phone? I said. A burner, she corrected. Insurance. She tapped it, scrolled, then turned the screen toward me. On it was a drafted message addressed to my wife's full name spelled perfectly, my wife's work email visible in the contact list like Mara had been studying her. The draft read, ask him about the hotel on 8th. Ask him about Mara. I stared at the screen. You know her email? I know where she works, Mara said. I know her lunch break. I know the route she takes when she's angry and pretending she isn't. My mouth went dry for a different reason. This wasn't a messy affair. This was a plan with checkpoints. You called my office line, I said, remembering. That was you. Mara nodded once. I wanted you aware she was hunting. People make better mistakes when they know they're being watched. I looked at the locket on her throat again, that worn inside, and the old memory punched through the fog. Elise, 17, sunburned shoulders, telling me to meet her by the river after the fireworks. The last time I saw her, she'd been crying in her car while I pretended I couldn't hear her. You're Elise's, I started. Mara's smile sharpened. Careful, you say her name out loud, and I'll know you remember. And if you remember, you can't pretend you're innocent. I haven't said her name, I said. You don't have to, she replied. Your face already did. My wife's location wasn't on my phone, but I knew her habits. If she said she'd stop by the office at 2, she'd leave early so she could circle the block first. She'd park where she could watch the doors. I grabbed my phone again and typed fast. In a meeting. Can't talk. Love you. Mara plucked it from my hand before I could hit send. Too clean, she said. That's not you. You over-explain when you're guilty. She deleted it, then typed for me with quick, confident thumbs. In meetings all afternoon. Battery low. Home after. 14 Kestrel Lane. She hit send. The message shot off like a bullet. My stomach dropped, not from fear, Jack the math. She'd forced me to write my address so my wife would picture me there. She was building an alibi she could later rip apart. Now, Mara said, you're going to do one more thing. What? She opened the hotel room curtain a few inches. Just enough. Across the street, half hidden behind a delivery van, sat my wife's car. I knew it by the dent on the rear bumper and the way she always parked too far forward, like she wanted a quick escape. The engine wasn't running. The car was still. That meant she'd been there long enough to settle. My lungs forgot their job. She followed you, Mara whispered, like she was savoring it. Or she followed the version of you texted into existence. I didn't know I started. Mara cut me off. You're going to walk out of this room alone. You're going to cross the lobby. You're going to leave through the front doors. You told me the lobby camera. The hotel's camera is broken, she said. Mine isn't. She pointed to the corner near the smoke detector. A tiny dark dot I hadn't noticed. You put a camera in here? I said. Mara nodded like it was obvious. I need the right angle when she sees you. Sees me doing what? I snapped. Mara's voice stayed soft. Lying. She reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my car keys, then dangled them. If you try to run to her car, I send the parking lot video. If you stay, she comes up here. If you do what I say, you might survive this with only half your life burned. My phone buzzed again. My wife, calling, like she'd finally spotted movement. Mara lowered her voice until it felt like a blade on my throat. Front door. Alone. Hands visible. Then you're going to wave at her and walk away. And if I don't? Mara opened her locket and held it up between us, the E catching the light like a warning. Then I make sure she learns the truth the same way my mother did. She slipped my keys into her pocket. Then she stepped back and pointed at the door like she was letting a prisoner out for his own execution. I moved to the peephole, and through the warped glass I saw the corridor empty, beige and silent, leading straight to the elevator that would carry me down to the woman waiting in the car. My wife's headlights flicked on. One sudden flash, like she'd raised her eyes and finally found the room. I stood up because Mara nodded at my shirt like it was crooked, and I caught myself smoothing the fabric the way I do before a meeting. Phone on the table, she said. I placed it down. She slid it 2 inches away from me, out of reach, like training a dog. Look at me, she added. I did, and the anger finally broke through. You don't get to do this to me. Mara didn't flinch. She just tilted her head. You did it first. You just don't remember the bill coming due. She pulled my car keys from her pocket and made them jingle once. A small sound. A leash. Front door, she repeated. Wave. Walk away. If you run to her, I send the clip. If you come back up here with her, I send the clip. If you try to grab me, the clip goes to HR too. HR, I said. So that's it. You're going to burn my job. That's the point, she said. I want you unemployed. I want your wife looking at you like a stranger. I want your name to taste bad in your own mouth. My jaw locked once, hard. Why? Mara's eyes stayed steady. Because when my mother found out, she was sitting alone in an ER waiting room with a dead phone and a paper bracelet on her wrist. She didn't cry. She just stared at the vending machines like she could crawl inside them and disappear. That image never left me. My stomach turned, not because I felt guilty, because I recognized the kind of detail you only have if you were there. She lifted the burner. You're going to follow my script. And later, you're going to send an email to HR from your work account. You'll admit the affair. You'll say you used company time. You'll say you pressured me. You'll ruin yourself cleanly so I don't have to. That's insane, I said. Mara smiled. You already ruined yourself. I'm just choosing the order. She pointed to the door. I moved, and each step felt like I was walking out to be shot. At the threshold, she added almost gently, if you try to warn her, I'll make sure she gets the full timeline. Entry, room, your address text, all of it. I've been building it like a little movie. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The elevator arrived fast, like it had been waiting. I rode down alone, hands open at my sides the way she demanded. And when the doors slid apart, I saw the lobby through a slice of glass. Quiet, indifferent, full of people who had no idea what kind of trial I was in. I walked straight out the front doors. My wife's car was still across the street, headlights off now. She was watching through the windshield, her face pale in the daylight like she hadn't slept. When she saw me, her hand jerked on the steering wheel like she'd flinch hit the horn but stopped herself. Mara wanted a wave, so I lifted my hand. My wife's mouth opened like she'd been punched. She pushed the door open and got out, fast, like anger finally gave her permission to move. I turned the way Mara told me to. I walked away from her. Behind me, I heard her footsteps slap the sidewalk. Hey, she shouted. I didn't stop. If I stopped, Mara would send the video. If I didn't stop, my wife would run me down anyway. She grabbed my arm and yanked me toward her, and for a second I saw the earring again in her mind, tiny and calm on the counter, like proof that didn't care about my excuses. What is this? She hissed, holding up her phone. The screen showed my text, 14 Kestrel Lane. My own address sitting there like a joke. Why are you texting me our address like I don't live there? I'm in meetings, I said automatically. She stared at me. Don't, not here, not with that voice. Her gaze snapped past my shoulder to the hotel entrance. I watched you come out alone. So where's the woman who went in with you? My blood went cold. What woman? She leaned closer, breath sharp. The one with the silver locket. The locket. She'd seen Mara, which meant Mara had let her. My wife's fingers dug into my sleeve. I didn't follow you by accident. Someone sent me an email this morning from an address I didn't recognize. It said, if you want the truth, watch the side entrance. I swallowed, and the street noise got distant, like my brain was trying to mute reality. You were going to leave me in the dark, my wife said, just like you always do. So tell me, who is she? My phone, still in my pocket, vibrated once, a single heavy buzz like a warning. I didn't have to look to know it was Mara. My wife saw my eyes flick down. No, she snapped. Don't you dare check your phone. Don't you dare take instructions. I should have listened, but panic is muscle memory. I pulled the phone out and glanced at the screen. Mara, say, you're right, I lied. Then walk her into the lobby. Now, my wife's face changed when she saw the name on the lock screen. Mara, she read. Then she looked up at me, and her voice went quiet in a way that scared me more than screaming. So it's not a random woman. It's a person, a name, a coworker. I tightened my grip on the phone until my knuckles ached. It's not. Stop, she cut in. Just stop. She reached into her purse and pulled out the earring again, this time sealed inside a small plastic bag like evidence. This was the first thing. Then the email. Then I watch you disappear into a hotel. Then you wave at me like I'm some stranger you're trying not to recognize. My throat burned. I can explain. Explain this, she said, and shoved her phone at me. A video played, grainy from a distance. The side entrance, my back, and Mara's hand on my wrist, guiding me inside like she owned me. My stomach dropped, because that meant Mara hadn't been bluffing about cameras. She'd planted my wife exactly where she needed her, and she'd made sure my wife got proof before she got answers. My wife's eyes were glossy but steady. Either you tell me everything right now, she said, or I walk into that lobby, find her, and I ask her myself. The lobby, the exact place Mara wanted her. I finally snapped. She's using you, I said, too loud. Heads turned. She's doing this on purpose. My wife didn't blink. Then why are you letting her? Because she had my job in one hand and my marriage in the other, and I'd already handed her both without realizing it. My phone buzzed again, and this time a photo came through. A hospital waiting room, fluorescent lights, a vending machine, and in the corner, a girl with sunburned shoulders and a paper bracelet on her wrist, staring straight ahead like she'd been hollowed out. I hadn't seen that room in years. Under the photo, one line, Walk her inside or I send her what happened after you left. My wife watched my face collapse and whispered, "Why do you look like you've seen that place before?" And across the street, through the hotel glass, I saw Mara's silhouette in the lobby, still patient, waiting for me to bring my wife right to her. My wife didn't walk into the lobby. She stormed in. The glass doors hissed shut behind us and the quiet, warm air hit her like an insult. She scanned the room once, fast, surgical, then locked onto Mara on the couch by the window like she'd been painted there on purpose. Mara stood the second my wife moved. Not startled, not embarrassed, ready. "Hi," Mara said soft. My wife cut her off. "Are you sleeping with my husband?" Heads turned. A couple at the coffee stand froze mid-stir. The concierge pretended not to hear. Mara didn't look at me. Yes, the word landed clean. No romance, no apology, just a fact dropped on marble. My wife made a sound that wasn't a sob and wasn't a laugh. She reached into her purse, pulled out the plastic evidence bag, and held it up between them. "This was in my laundry," she said. "You want to tell me why?" Mara's gaze flicked to the bag and back up. "That one wasn't me." The lobby got quieter in my ears, like someone turned the volume down. My wife blinked once, slow, like her brain refused to accept an answer that made the world messier. "Then what the hell is happening in my house?" Mara didn't explain. She just reached into her bag and set a thin folder on the table. One smooth motion, like she'd rehearsed it in this exact spot. She opened it to the first page and slid it toward my wife. A photo of my car in the company lot. Timestamp, date, time. A small circle drawn around the fog driver's window. My wife didn't touch the page. She stared at it like it was a dead animal. Mara flipped to the next sheet without being asked. A printed email draft with the subject line already filled. Confession. Under it, HR, my boss, compliance, addresses typed in like targets. The body wasn't poetry. It was a demolition plan written in my voice. My wife's throat worked. "You're making him do this?" Mara finally looked at me. "He's going to send it," she said. "Today." My wife's eyes snapped to mine. "Is that true?" I opened my mouth and nothing came out fast enough. The silence answered for me. My wife's face didn't crumple. It went still, and that scared me more than screaming. She turned back to Mara. "Why?" she said, and her voice was thin with disbelief. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" Mara's reply was short, concrete. "I want you to leave him." My wife froze. Mara continued, calm as a spreadsheet. "Not maybe. Not we'll try therapy. I want you to walk out and never come back. And I want him to watch you do it without being able to stop it." My wife's lips parted. "So this is a performance?" Mara shrugged. "It's a correction." My wife's hand went to her wedding ring. Not to take it off, just to touch it like it was suddenly unfamiliar metal on her skin. Then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled her phone up and hit record. The camera pointed at Mara first, then at me, then back to Mara. Her hand was shaking, but her eyes were locked. "Say your name," my wife told Mara. "Say it for the camera." Mara smiled, just a flash. "Mara, and you're my husband's coworker," my wife said, voice steady now. "And you're telling me you've been sleeping with him, and you're blackmailing him to confess to HR, and you want me to leave him." Mara didn't blink. "Yes." My wife's breath caught. One sharp inhale. Then she nodded like she'd just pinned something to a board. "Good," she whispered. "Now there's a witness." Mara's eyes narrowed a fraction, like this wasn't part of her script. My wife swung the camera to me. "Look at me," she said. I did. "Do you have any idea what you just did to our kid?" she asked quietly. The word kid hit harder than any folder. Our son's lunchbox on the counter, the little dinosaur sticker he insisted on, the way he'd run to the door when he heard my keys. My wife's voice didn't rise, but it turned the room into a crime scene. Mara's voice cut in quick. "Don't cry about your kid like he cried about my mother." My wife stiffened. "Your mother." Mara didn't elaborate. She reached into the folder and pulled out one last sheet, then slid it across. Old photo. Grainy. A teenage me next to a girl with sunburned shoulders, half turned away, but the smile was a bruise I'd never stopped touching. My wife's eyes flicked between the photo and Mara's locket like puzzle pieces snapping. Mara opened the locket and turned it outward. Inside, the worn letter caught the lobby light. N.E. My wife's voice dropped. Who is Elise? I didn't answer. My wife's phone kept recording, and the red in the corner of the screen felt like a countdown. Mara leaned in just enough that it was intimate and threatening at the same time. Tell her what you did, she said. My wife didn't look away from me. What did you do? She asked, and her voice cracked on the last word like the ring on her finger had suddenly gotten heavy. Mara didn't give me time to stall. She pulled out a folded letter, paper softened from being opened too many times, and placed it on the table like a final card. My name was on the front in handwriting I knew instantly. My wife's hand hovered over it, then snatched it up like she was afraid it would disappear. When is this from? Mara's answer was a blade. The week you didn't show. My wife stared at the envelope, then at me. You knew her before me. I swallowed once. That was all my body allowed. Mara's voice stayed low, predatory. Read it, she said to me, out loud, on her recording. My wife's fingers tightened until the paper bent. Read it, she repeated, and the sound of her voice wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, like grief that had decided to stand up. I didn't move. Mara's smile returned, small and satisfied. If you don't, she said, I will. She tapped the envelope with one nail. And I won't skip the line where she begs you to come back. My wife kept the letter in her hands like it was hot. Her phone was still up, still recording, the red dot steady while her eyes moved down the page. She read again, quieter now, like the lobby didn't deserve to hear it. The doctor said it was a miscarriage. I felt my stomach drop once and stay there. My wife didn't look at me right away. She stared at the word like it had teeth. Then she kept going, voice breaking on the next lines anyway. Please call me. Please. I can't do this by myself. Her breath hitched. Then she read the last sentence, the one Mara had promised she wouldn't skip. Please come back. Silence swallowed the lobby. My wife lowered the letter. She didn't wipe her face. She didn't blink fast. She just stared at me with a calm that felt like a door locking. I opened my mouth. Don't, she said. One word. Verdict. Mara shifted beside the couch, watching my wife like she was waiting for the collapse. Now you get it, Mara murmured, almost satisfied. My wife didn't even turn her head. She reached up, thumb tapping her screen once. The recording stopped. That tiny click was louder than any shout. Then my wife reached into her purse and pulled out my wallet, the one she'd asked for that morning, the one I'd fought her over. She didn't say anything. She just opened it and slid out the hotel keycard I'd hidden. Mara's eyes flicked to it, sharp. My wife held the card between two fingers, looked at me once, and snapped it in half. The crack was small, final. She dropped both pieces onto the folder of evidence like they were dead bugs. Then she pulled out a second envelope, clean, white, unwrinkled, already sealed. Not old pain, new paperwork. My lawyer drafted these, she said. I'm filing today. She set the envelope on the table and pushed it toward me. Mara's smile tightened. You're leaving him because of something he did before he knew you? My wife finally looked at Mara, and her voice was flat. No, I'm leaving him because this is who he is when nobody's watching. She slid a pen across the table with her fingertip. Sign, she told me. I stared at the envelope. My name was printed on the label in my wife's handwriting. Neat, controlled, like she'd written it while I was practicing lies. My throat worked. Please. She didn't flinch. You already used up please on her, she said, nodding at the letter in her other hand. Mara leaned forward, a little too fast, like she wanted to reclaim the script. If he signs, I don't get what I... My wife cut her off without even looking. You got your show, she said. Enjoy the ending. I picked up the pen. My hand shook once. I forced it steady. I signed where the tab pointed, my own name turning into a line that could erase me. When I finished, my wife pulled the envelope back toward her, slipped Elisa's letter inside with it, old guilt sealed into new consequence, and stood. I reached for her wrist on instinct. She stepped back like my touch was a stain. She walked out through the glass doors without turning, without a final speech, without a glance. Through the window, I watched her cross the street and get into her car. The engine started. The car rolled away. The space she left behind didn't fill. Mara stayed standing in the lobby, locket glinting, jaw tight, like she'd just watched someone take the detonator out of her hand. On the table between us, 2 jagged halves of the hotel keycard lay beside my signature. Plastic and ink, both snapped into the same kind of ruin.